Democratic Alliance is calling on Agricultural Minister Thoko Didiza to clean up the administration of state-owned land and to stop the evictions of emerging farmers from government property. Now, this comes after a recent uptick in evictions ordered by various provincial agriculture and rural development satellite offices. Some of the farmers alleged unfair treatment and claimed that bribes are being taken in exchange for 30-year leases. Government recently announced the release of 700,000 hectares of unused state-owned land to emerging black farmers. Annette Steyn is a member of Parliament with the Democratic Alliance. She joins us now from Venterstad in the Eastern Cape. Annette, thanks very much for making time for us. Welcome to the AM report. Perhaps let's start by providing context and background for people who aren't following the story closely. In what ways are emerging farmers being placed in a vulnerable position in South Africa?
Yeah, as we know, government as part of the land reform process has three systems that they are using, but I want to focus on the one. That is the one of land redistribution. It is mostly previously owned commercial or white farmland that is bought up by government as part of the land reform process and then made available for black farmers to use. Over the years, not a lot of attention was given to this section of farmers, especially there's no database or system that you can log onto and go and see how much land government has available, who is on the land, what happened on the land. A lot of that land has been lying fallow for a long time, or farmers have been on the land with short-term leases or also what they would call caretakership programs for a one-year period on the land. In many of the cases, farmers were given no any assistance whatsoever, and many of them were struggling to farm on this land. Now, in the last year or two, government has tried to tighten up on the programs, and we support that. The fact that we need a list of what land is available, where is it available, who is on the land, and what is happening on the land. That's all good and well. We all support that. But what we have seen since 2019, last year, farmers on the land has been receiving letters from local officers to say that they need to vacate the land because they are not using it optimally or all kinds of other reasons that were provided. And it's those farmers that contacted us to say, can't we assist, because the local officials just don't want to listen to anything that they are telling them. And what they have seen in certain cases is some of the officials have asked for bribes. So this is the concern that we have, and we are now asking the minister to stop these evictions of farmers on state land as part of their program, so that we can first ensure that there is nothing that officials is doing to make certain farmers leave the land fallow at the moment. We know it's planting season now. People don't know what they must do because they have animals. They must start plowing and planting for the next season, but there's a sword hanging over their heads.
Right. And one of the people, according to my understanding, who came to you for assistance is a person by the name of Vuyisile Zigana. Take us through their case, and hopefully that will be a test case for understanding a bit better the plight of emerging farmers in the country. What was Vuyisile Zigana's issue, and how does it expose some of the aspects that are problematic insofar as this matter is concerned?
Yeah, Vuyisile was given a land in the Kokstad area in 2012. He then went onto the land, but reading the investigating report that I received from the minister over the weekend, it clearly shows that, it's very open to manipulation, the processes. Because with Vuyisile on the same land, there were 2 or 3 other groups. They worked together well on the farm. They had a good relationship. And then at one stage, Vuyisile last year, 2018, Vuyisile was called by an official to say that he must vacate the land. When he asked questions, the answer was no, the land was already earmarked for someone else. He then tried his best, trying to make contact of senior officials in the department, even trying to go to court to get this stopped. but the process just proceeded. And one day, Voisile saw that there's an advertisement in the local newspapers advertising that specific piece of land that he's farming on, to say that it is now open for new people to apply. No one even contacted him as a person already on that land. There was then an interview process where all people needed to go to the interview, and he did not make it. But interestingly enough, according to the report, the person that scored highest and that would most usually then make get the lease also didn't make it. So the questions need to be asked. The person that then got the lease, a 30 years lease agreement, what did he do, or what contact did he have that he then made it? So obviously there's a process where certain people can either, which we have now heard from other farmers in Mpumalanga, bribe officials to get the contracts, or use other methods then to be part of the contracts. And some people, under the same circumstances as the reasons that they were given on why they can't apply or didn't get the land again, is also confusing, because certain people under the same circumstances then were given lease agreements and others not. So my thing is that I suspect that in most cases people were paying bribes to get that leases then renewed.
Yeah.
And what is more concerning is the process for lease agreements actually opened on Monday. So officially the 700,000 hectares of state land that is going to be made available for leases, that is either unutilized land or land that is not used to the maximum capacity, according to officials. But who decides what is maximum capacity when you have officials that decides on that? They don't even farm. They understand nothing about farming, but they wanted to make decisions on behalf of farmers who have been struggling for years to get assistance from the department.
Right. It certainly sounds like yet another case of just blatant corruption taking place in South Africa. But you mentioned that this dates back to about late 2019. We're approaching the end of this year, according to some people at least. What's been the response from the department to the many instances, I imagine, where you've tried to sound the alarm?
Well, I've started with one case, Mr. Zigana in Kokstad, that we have received the report now on Friday. But while I was waiting for that report, I have now received letters and, as I said, even statements and sworn affidavits from at least 2 members' affidavits and letters from 12 other members in the Mpumalanga offices or area that went through similar experience. So this is not a case of, there's also a farmer from the Western Cape who has contacted me a few months ago. So I then called on the minister yesterday to place a moratorium so that we can see what's going on. My concern is not fallow land. Where there's nothing on them, please proceed, because we need farmers on the land. My concern is the letters that farmers that's currently on the land is receiving, because according to my information, some other people have already been identified to take over on that land.
And you say it's an issue that's sort of been witnessed across the country. Help us understand the scale of how many farmers we're talking here, and I guess the bearing this can have potentially on the sector.
Yeah. You see, unfortunately, I'm not sure how many farmers is affected, because we have tried to ask the department to give us information on, firstly, how much we know about the 700,000 hectares and where it is, how many hectares per province that they have identified. But what we don't know is, on that 700,000 hectares, how many of that already have farmers on it, and whether they would be given an opportunity themselves to renew their leases. But as I saw, in most cases, the farmers were told to already vacate the land, and then they must apply for other farms. And that makes the process, I would think, very difficult. You know, farming is not an easy operation. You have droughts, you have all kinds of other problems that they need to deal with. And you can't make a profit within the first 5 to 10 years. Certain operations, you start only making profit or some kind of profit after 10, 15 years. So imagine yourself trying to build yourself up on a piece of state land for a few years, and then now suddenly, once you have, done something like repairing the fences and doing other work that you want to do, you get a letter to say, sorry, you must go, but you can apply for another farm somewhere else, and there's no reason that you will get that land. It all depends, maybe, if you pay a bribe or not.
And so, Annette, as we wrap up our conversation, I mean, what is the ideal outcome here? Because to me, it almost sounds like the best possible outcome is getting a 30-year lease on a specific farm as an emerging farmer. But even that sounds to me like just kicking the can down the road and not solving the issue in the long term. Because, I mean, again, in 30 years, that's probably when you really start reaping the fruits of your labor, considering how arduous a process farming is, as you've already explained.
Exactly. That is even more concerning, because you might know about the case of Mr. In North West Province, where a farmer had a 30-year lease agreement, or not even a 30-year lease agreement. The first land reform processes of rural development was that farmers have lease agreements and then they can apply to buy the land. And then in 2010, they unilaterally changed that. They had contracts. Farmers were sitting with contracts saying they have a lease agreement with the option to purchase. Exactly what they want to do now. Then the state unilaterally changed the side to say the option to purchase then falls away, and farmers would then have to reapply for a 30-year lease agreement. So there is no surety that the farmers who's going through the process now with the 30-year lease option, with the option to purchase, it's going to get the land at the end of the day. So the Democratic Alliance has been calling for farmers to get title to the land, those that want that. Not all people want title to their land. Some want to lease for a period to see how they will be doing, and could they really farm. The important part is that they get something, either title to the land or a proper lease agreement that they can go to a bank or to an institution to say that they want a loan to start planting or to buy cattle or to do whatever they want, because no institution in South Africa will help farmers if they don't have a proper something, some paper or a long-term lease or something else. But with what the state have been doing to give people short-term leases, not to keep their registers in place, farmers had to go and beg them to renew leases. So it is really a problematic area. I've also written to the president to ask for a SIU investigation in the specific Mpumalanga area to see if there is corruption.
All right. Well, thanks for helping us highlight this issue. It certainly sounds to me like a whole lot of details still need to be ironed out. For one, there are a lot of emerging questions for the department itself, so that's probably our next step. Thanks very much for coming on to the AM Report, giving us your experience and your take on what I imagine is obviously a very important issue. Annette Steyn is a Member of Parliament with the Democratic Alliance. Thanks very much indeed.